So the point is, I started the company at the time, 2019. It was an extremely tough year because, as you guys know, in 2019, 2020, something happened to the world, and it's called COVID. And when that happened, we lost all of the projects, completely gone, shut down, all one next to the other. One of those projects was actually quite interesting. Just like I'm going to jump to another subject right now. That project was called Hope. And it was actually made for the Sharjah prison. So I went to prison, literally, I went to prison to do a presentation to prisoners and the officers, pitching a project to a room full of these guys while I had a broken leg. I'm swear, like, this story just keeps getting weirder. And gave them the presentation about, the idea was to improve rehabilitation. How about we create a room in prison where the inmates can go to it, put a VR headset on, and that VR headset takes them somewhere nice, somewhere natural, somewhere around the UAE, in the desert, in the forest. And it was even elevated further that the prison wanted me to actually go to the inmates' families, take 360 videos in VR, and give it to the prisoners in that room to improve their rehabilitation. It was a very interesting project. But COVID happened, everything shut down, bye-bye, all done, out the window. So once that happened, I realized that, like, okay, we need to redirect our attention and focus onto the international market. And that's where we continued the development process of one of our titles called Shadow Dreams, the first-person shooter. Continue the development, and one big part that people confuse or don't realize when it comes to game dev is that making the game is half the work. I swear, man, like, it's not even 70% of the work. It's about half the work, making the game. Because the other half is, where is your game going to be? And if you say Steam, then you lost the battle already. Because Steam alone is not enough, not in today's standards. The market is way too competitive. You need to branch out into different platforms. You need to go into PlayStation. You need to go into Xbox. You need to go into the Nintendo Switch. You need to access all these markets, and it is extremely difficult. And here's why. Because in the UAE or the Gulf region or the Middle East in general, game development is not popular. And because it's not popular, there's a lot of things that are necessary for you to have that are not available within our region, such as dev kits. So I can't show you the dev kit for legal reasons, because the dev kit, if literally, like, if someone takes a picture of it, it will be invalid. It would invalidate your contract. It's that serious. So to develop for the PlayStation, you need something called the dev kit, which is like, have you guys seen the leaks of the PlayStation, where it looked like super weird and looked like I don't know what, like a fridge, like a mini fridge? A lot of people made fun of it and like, yeah, that's not the PlayStation. Actually, that was the PlayStation, but that was the dev kit. So the dev kit is a very specialized piece of hardware that is given only to developers, specific chosen developers. And without this dev kit, you cannot develop for the platform. So you cannot access it. I remember seeing a dev kit for the Nintendo Switch. Actually, I have not seen it yet, the Nintendo Switch. And here's the problem. Like, we're going to it's going to why that was an issue, the whole dev kit situation. So because there aren't many developers or any developers inside the country that have developed for PlayStation at the time, at least, I don't know about now, but I haven't seen anyone yet personally. Because there aren't any developers in here, getting that dev kit into the country is literally, I'm not exaggerating, the response I got from PlayStation, it is illegal. It is illegal to send you that dev kit because the import papers are not completed. They're not done for that piece of hardware. No one applied for it ever, including Sony themselves in the UAE. And that's why the dev kit is not allowed in the country. So it took me, I'm not exaggerating, exactly 2 years to get the dev kit here. I had to pull a lot of strings. I had to ask for a lot of favors from a lot of people just to please, for God's sake, we cannot enter the market without the dev kit. Because no matter how good your game is, if it doesn't go into the dev kit, if you don't program it and export it and test it and whatnot, the platform cannot accept it. Like, that's it. It is black and white. So alhamdulillah, like, if I'm not wrong, I believe that this is the first dev kit to ever enter the country. It's that extreme. So alhamdulillah, we got the dev kit into the country, and right now we are developing two, actually, to be exact, 3 titles for the PS5 at the moment. So alhamdulillah, the struggle is still ongoing, but we are reaching this phase where we're really coming close to publishing. And that phase is extremely scary because that's it, like that's the make it or break it point. And once we launch these titles, I hope that you guys support us, and inshallah khair, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll make more games. So I think that was a very good introduction as to what we do since 2012. So now I can actually start the presentation. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? Let's set up, share screen. Fantastic. Okay, so I think that was enough of an introduction. If you guys would like to see our portfolio, or at least what you can actually see from it, because remember, a lot of the projects are white labeled and we cannot take credit for them, so we can't add them into our portfolio. Just go to khosouf.com/portfolio. Now, the concept of this presentation is to be a very introductory form of introducing what is game development and what do you need to get into game development. And again, the questions are open. Talk in the chat if you'd like. That's fine with me. I'll answer whatever I can. So, setting sail. You ride the ship and set sail. I'm reading it because I wrote it like 6 years ago, and I'm just like interested in what I wrote. So don't worry about how strong your ship or PC is. So that's one concern that a lot of people face. And I remember when I was teaching guitar, there was one student who always complained that the guitar is the problem. The strings are too weak. The pickups are not picking up the good sound. The amplifier is too cheap. And I'm like, no, you are just bad. So don't worry about your equipment. Don't worry about your hardware. Don't worry about how your GPU is. You don't need a 4090 RTX to start game dev. You just need a working, running computer. Download the engine and go. It's free. So you are the problem, not the hardware. We covered that. You need patience and persistence, which is something that a lot of people struggle with. You need to wait. You need to enjoy the process, fall in love with the process, and not just aim for the goal. A lot of people have this mentality where they see the rock star on the stage with the guitar playing and whatnot, and they're like, I want to be there. But what they don't see is the endless hours before that of practicing, training, failing miserably before they got on the stage playing in front of a lot of people. So don't be that person. Don't look at that person on stage and be like, I want to be there now. You can be there in the future, but you have to go through the struggle first. So yeah, moving on. So you have set sail. You decided that, like, my hardware is not the problem. All aspiring game developers starting making games with their schoolwork laptops. That is very correct. Like, the laptop I started with was literally a piece of garbage. I appreciated it at the time, but it was a piece of garbage, man. Like, I remember a plain empty project would run at 15 frames per second. That's an issue. But I lasted on it for 2 years. It's fine. Because again, you are the issue, not the hardware. There's an endless amount of knowledge for you to gain before your hardware becomes the issue. All right, just 1 second. Okay. So next, what is that? Okay, next, the mountains. That was a very clear description of a mountain, I guess. The mountains of learning. So the first step after you have determined your mind that you won't like to get into game dev is that you need the slow and steady climb. If you rush, if you take too many steps, if you just close your eyes and go for it, most likely you will fail. If you aim for a project that's way too big, you will fail. Take it from me. I failed. I know what I'm talking about. Learn how to walk first, then run, then climb. Self-explanatory. Don't climb Everest yet, meaning don't aim for a big project. For God's sake, please. I know it's tempting. I went into it. It doesn't end well. Choose a project that's simple, small, start it, finish it. Even if the project is as simple as, like a 2D platformer or a 3D shooter where you're like, shoot the target, next level. Shoot the 2 targets, next level. Shoot 3 targets, next level. End menu, credits. If you do that from start to finish, you have done a fantastic job. But if you decide like, okay, my game is going to have 70 boss battles and procedurally generated guns, and the bullets are going to decide who they kill based on the IQ of the enemy, that does not end well. Just stop right there, simplify, get it done within a week or a month, and trust me, it will take 4 months. Go through that process, and then you've just literally, again, you have to remember that falling in love with the process is the most important part. If you are too rushed, if you go to the gym and carry 300 kilograms for a deadlift, you will break your back. Similar process here, but for your brain. Next. So to introduce you to what are the main elements of a game dev team, or what are the main skills that you need to learn. First, the toy maker, which I call the toy maker is the 3D modeler and the animation department. The toy maker uses his imagination to imitate life. So you need things in your game, whether they are 2D or 3D. Every single rock, tree, piece of grass in the game that is made of a mesh. That's if it's a 3D game. A mesh is basically, a mesh of polygons connected together, and then the texture is put on them, a material, and that gives it its color. So the mesh creates the shape, the material gives it the color, you give it to an environment artist, or you become the environment artist, and you put it in there, and you're good to go. That's thing in the game. So you need someone who makes things. That applies to 3D and 2D, as I said. Whether it's UI, whether it's 3D modeling, whether it's a character in a 2D platformer game, you need someone who makes these things. And if you can't make these things, then go to the asset store and buy yourself a nice chunky pack. And trust me, that will be enough for 1 year of development. Remember, the idea is to finish something, not to make something incredibly amazing that will change the world. It's good to dream, but dreams without a vision turn to nightmares. So just be careful there. Next, we have the magician, which is the programmer. The magician uses his time behind the scenes to build magic. So basically, what you experience in a game is made by the programmer. You don't see it, but you interact with it. The sword swing, when it happens in a game, and the enemy gets hurt, gets damaged, and animation plays. Dude, there's no. Tell him shut down, please. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's just what he's doing right now is he's designing the rhythm to one of the songs that I made, which is again progressive death metal, which is extremely loud. So sorry about that. And it's still ongoing. Yeah, just hold off on that until I'm done, please. Yeah. Thank you.
What, did you crash?
No, you're good. Okay, game jams are a great way to get in unique ideas and finish small games. Yes, 100%. Game jams are absolutely fantastic. Like, I've seen people do game jams. I judged the global game jam competition that happened in YAS Creative Hub last month, and it was a lot of fun to see people go at it. Like, you have 3 days. For people who don't know, game jams are like, a certain organization drops a concept, and you have to develop a game for that concept within 2 to 3 days. It is actually a lot of fun. It gets you through it, but you got to be careful because it might burn you out too much and you feel frustrated with yourself. So don't just jump into it. Get prepared, learn the skill, and then go into it. Next on the list, we have the thief.